Chicago becomes epicenter for racism and intolerance in the national LGBTQ+ community.
Fellas, you want to know the quickest way to get a man's attention? Just go in the back of the room and just go, yeah! One more time for the old blind lesbian in the back corner over there. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go, yeah! There it is, baby. That's my little Afro pup. My mama call her my little billow pads. You should see me do my pots and pans. Lord, I whistle while I work. I'm so bushy down there if I catch the crowd.
Famed leather bar Touché will hold a town hall next week after coming under fire for hiring a ventriloquist who used a racist puppet of a black woman during the bar's 45th anniversary party. The ventriloquist, Jerry Halliday, introduced his puppet as Sista Girl and was captured on video speaking with a stereotypical Blaccent or voice that white and non-black performers use to imitate black people. Witnesses said he made jokes about loving watermelon, being on welfare, and having multiple kids. Several audience members walked out mid-performance, including a bartender who quit mid-shift. Cris Bleaux, a bartender of Touché, said he walked out in disgust over Halliday's performance. Bleaux said he immediately felt uncomfortable when Halliday, a white man, came on stage and pulled out a black puppet. A barrage of social media posts were made Wednesday calling out Touché for allowing the performance to happen. The black puppet was pictured in posters advertising the 45th anniversary celebration. Chuck Rodecker, the owner of Touché, said he and the bar leaders apologized profusely and sincerely for the performance. Also, in Chicago last week was the International Mr. Rubber competition. The winner of the title, Pussycat Pumera Onyx from South Florida, was the first member of the black community to win the title. While he received a lot of support from the producers of the event, the announcement of his win was met with significant backlash from many who claim the fetish community should only be represented by light-skinned individuals. Amidst the recent midterm elections, such incidents shed light on how people from disadvantaged communities are treated in some parts of the country.
No, you didn't. I said, sit your raggedy ass down. I'm going to explain something to you tonight. Now, when I was born, I was beautiful brown. When I grew up, I'm still brown. When I go in the sun, I'm brown. When I'm cold, I'm brown. Excuse me, shut the fuck up over there, Mr. Filthy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, you can kiss my motherfucking ass, bitch. I'll come and touch you, baby. Don't fuck with me, honey.
So this is a tough one because he looks a little older. Like, how old do you think he is?
I don't care how old he is.
Right, but in his generation, humor like that was more acceptable, and it's not now. You know what I mean? Like, I can understand both sides. Like, I mean, you have the most famous ventriloquist in the world is Jeff Dunham. He's got a black puppet named Sweet Daddy D, who's a black record producer, and he does the exact same thing. He speaks in a black accent, and he pokes fun of all the black stereotypes, and nobody blinks an eye with him. He also has other puppets where he pokes fun of, racial stereotypes, not just racial stereotypes, but group stereotypes, like, the gay community, things like that. So it's kind of like, then you have shows like South Park, and you have shows like Family Guy, who were created by white guys who always make fun of black people and Puerto Rican people and gay people. And so it's like, where do you draw the line? What's considered offensive these days and what's considered acceptable these days?
Well, this is the time and the moment to start showing people what is offensive, especially to black people, especially with a black person sitting right here. Like, this is the time. This is offensive. This is straight out, like, when you have people walking out of the crowd. Also, the owner apologized, but from what I know, they auditioned this man this way, and he did this already before going up there and doing this live in front of a crowd. So this is the perfect moment. This is the time to show that this is not acceptable. We don't accept this. This is not it.
And he's also
you
performed there before too.
Well, yeah, and you, just to your point real quick, the puppet was featured on the poster advertising this. And I just look at that and I'm like, oh my God, that is literally every single stereotype. But I feel like I don't even know if he realized it was a stereotype or if he like really believes it. Like, cause like South Park, to your point, they are skewering people and they're pointing things out, but they're not meaningful about it. And I don't know, I just look at this puppet and the poster and I think maybe it was.
I'm not offended, and that's probably very unpopular being a black man. However, I would say a year ago I would have been offended. I would have been extremely offended, but I'm in a different place now in my life where I don't identify with color. What you see on the outside is not who I am in a higher conscious form. And so I've had to learn to detach from things that would get me emotional. Because if I responded to everything, gay, faggot, punk, sissy, if I continue to respond to those type of things, can you imagine the type of life that I would live? So when I
it would
see
be a
that
very
now,
angry life.
I would, and I have been there. I have been there, and I feel so free and liberated now. I look at that, and my prayers is for the people who are offended, so that they will.
It all depends. It also depends on you know, if the humor is delivered in a disparaging way. You know, if it's disparaging and if it's a real attack, then I can understand you being offended. You know, people make fun of, you know, the gay community all the time, you know, as in jest, you know, and I'm able to laugh at myself. You know, people make fun of Italians. I'm able to laugh at myself. And you know, again, it's just that you know, humor is just getting so different in this day and age. You know, it's so different. Things that were, you know, I mean, I grew up with the Joan Rivers and the Eddie Murphys and the George Carlins and the Richard Pryors and the Andrew Dice Clay. Their entire acts were based on racist humor, racially motivated humor. And it was so accepted back then. It was just accepted as humor. It was accepted as comedy. But now it's like even comedy is just offensive to so many people these days.
But even in this instance, it's a black trans woman, and he even lifts up the dress to show the private parts in a gay setting. And so in that context, I'm wondering if he is intentionally doing, because he made it a point for it to be a black trans woman. So it's not like he's just picking at black people eating watermelon and being on welfare. He's being intentional about his jest, and he's being intentional about what he's saying. So I won't excuse this man based on because, sir, you are intelligent. You know exactly what the hell you are doing.
Yeah.
And then in terms of this bar, Touché, or as we fondly call it, Tushy, will most likely survive as it's one of only a handful of leather bars in a city as big as Chicago. And the thing is, it's also got a long history of being welcoming to all members, all stripes of the community. So they're probably going to come through this, but it was a bad thing. It was a very
based on the video that I saw, I will have to agree with you. It did seem a little bit disparaging to me.
Yeah,
it did.
And to your point about Jeff Dunham, and then God, there was another person that I saw. He won like America's Got Talent like way back in the day, but just because it was disgusting 40 years ago. Yeah. I think now people are just able to stand up and say, no, this is disgusting and this is wrong. And I mean, I got to interview Joan Rivers once, so obviously she's not my best friend, but she was a wonderful interview, wonderful woman. I think she would have walked out on something like this. I don't think she would sit there and give her imprimatur to something like this.
She knew there was a line, and this man, he crossed that line for sure.
Right. Right.
And the story also goes on to talk about the kink community being disparaging against what's her name, Pussycat Onyx.
Yeah, what's that all about? Yeah. He wasn't white. He wasn't white enough. Like his skin was too dark.
His skin was too dark in order for him to win. And I mean, we also have to talk about colorism also in this country or worldwide as well. Like there's a problem with colorism. If your skin is too dark, there's a problem. If you don't represent well, or they think you don't represent well, there is an issue. And that has to be addressed. Like certain things, now that people are having a voice and addressing these things and having a backbone to actually stand up for who they are and say, you know what, this is not acceptable. I think this is the perfect time for them to have a town hall meeting and discuss these things.
And that would be my point. You know, people are so attached to the color, social economic status, and that alone starts the different type of wars. That's why now we see Putin and all these other people fighting, because they're so attached to the material makeup of things. And I had to detach from that. So.
Yeah, and and we have to look ahead to where this conversation is going. To your point, because if we can learn something from it, if having the conversation, because I mean, if this is the first Black person to win Mr. Rubber, well, that's progress in itself. And if people want to talk about it, and even if it starts in a disparaging way, if we're at least getting to the conversation, we're getting a winner and we're getting the conversation that no one's wanted to have, then I think that could be a positive that comes out of this.
Right. At least we're finally drawing a line and showing a boundary and sticking boundaries in the sand and being like, you know what, this shit is not right.
And one last thing for me, we must do that within our own community as well. You know, I'm not going to hold a person who's not Black more accountable than I am the own community. And you see within the community that there's such a disconnect and separation. So I can't personally be offended by stuff that I see my own community doing.
Well, I'm not a Black man, but you can hold me anytime. All right.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.